Hey everyone, it's Catherine Blazer with REI Live SRQ and Investor Quarters out of Sarasota, Florida. We are so excited to have our partners from REI Live Orlando, Marlena and Josh Dates, talking about virtual wholesaling. So they are ahead of the game because they got on the bandwagon of wholesaling and not necessarily going into everyone's house a few years ago. And I can't wait to learn on how I can implement the tools that they've been using for years in our business now that we can't necessarily go into people's homes with everything that's going on. So thank you so much, Marlena and Josh, for taking the time to join us. And I will let you take it from here.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for having us. We're glad to be collaborating with you guys and so many opportunities to do that, especially in today's virtual environment. So we're glad to be able to share. So we'll start out telling you just a little bit about us. I mean, a lot of you probably know who we are, but we used to be public school teachers, and we I decided to homeschool while Josh was still teaching. So I was looking for virtual work opportunities, and I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad both in 2001 when I didn't really believe it, and then in 2011 again when I was looking for work from home opportunities. And I changed my mind about it, and we started going to our local real estate investors group. So definitely a great place to meet people and learn. So we're really glad that we did that. For a few years there, we did rehabs and a lot of creative structure deals because coming from being teachers, we didn't have private money connections and we didn't have any real money of our own. So we did a lot of creative stuff. And we were lucky that we started out actually targeting out-of-state owners. So our very first deals and, all of our deals for those first few years were pretty much virtually done. Not that we never went out to a house and did those sorts of things locally, but, a lot of the people that we were making deals with were in completely different locations. So we have a wealth of experience in doing this. And again, very happy to share it with you guys. 2015, we decided to start wholesaling as our primary business model, and everything has just kind of taken off from there. We're so glad that we did that. We wanted to try and dial in one strategy to really get good with it and really just kind of be laser focused and hopefully generate massive success and results, which is what we've done since then. In 2017, Josh left teaching and came home with me because we had a month where we made more in a month than he made in a whole year as a teacher. So it's kind of a no-brainer at that point, although it was still a little challenging to get him to leave the safety and security, or at least the perceived safety and security of having a full-time job. But we're glad that we did that because 2018, we started building a team and we expanded across Florida. We started doing deals in other markets where we did know people, so we had boots on the ground, but we had to train them from scratch, and we never went and saw any of those properties. We learned as we went, and so again, basically opened up in virtual markets. We didn't do this all intentionally. It was more just to kind of work with people that we knew, like friends and family, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend. We had a good experience with it, but that's not really the way to go into a new market. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But last year, we actually went to Europe with our kids. We have 3 kids, so we went for 26 days to Italy, Greece, and Spain, and we actually wholesaled 3 deals while we were there. So we did the whole thing virtually, sitting in a nice place in Tuscany on our computers, sipping our coffee and making phone calls, talking to sellers. So you can really do this from anywhere, and today's technology makes it really easy. And then this year we actually started our REI Live Orlando. So again, I'm glad to be collaborating with you guys there in Sarasota. And we are now offering local mentorship and coaching, although we've kind of been informally doing that for some time. We're doing it more formally now. So jumping into what we're here for today, because I know we don't have a huge amount of time, and I mean, we could sit here and do a whole day class on this, but just to start out with the basics, if anybody on this call doesn't really know what wholesaling is, a lot of people think of it as an exit strategy, as something you do once you have a deal, but we really think about it as the way that you get into a deal if you have a good deal. So, you think about wholesaling as buying low and selling high. So we look at it as the art of actually finding those discounted properties. You have to find the thing at a low price to be able to sell it at a higher price. But we can tell you whoever has the best deals is the person that everybody's going to want to come to and work with, because you have the deals everybody wants, or you have the deals that people want to lend on, or you have the deals that people want to partner with. And you have everything that everybody wants if you've got a discounted property deal. And then once you have it, you can do whatever exit you want. You can rehab it and retail it, rent it out, sell it to someone else at a markup, which is what most people think of as wholesaling. You can do that with an assignment, a double close, or creative terms. So again, this is just kind of a quick overview of what wholesaling is. Hopefully most of you already understand that. Just so you know, as we go through this, we're going to leave a few minutes at the end for any questions. So hopefully we'll cover any questions that you have as we go through. But if you do have any, then you'll have time to ask at the end. So just jot them down if you do.
Absolutely. We also, really quick, Marlena, we have a chat box that is at the top right-hand side of your screen. If you guys do have questions, you can drop them in there, and then we'll be answering at the end, okay?
Awesome. And Catherine, just call it out if you see anything that looks really relevant in the moment, because I don't mind stopping. I just can't see it on the screen.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so, and apologies for my presentation. I usually like it to come out point by point, but because we just had to switch screens, the formatting is apparently off. So it's just all going to come up on the screen and I'll just be going through it. But today we're going to cover what it looks like to do virtual wholesaling, and specifically in this COVID-19 world that we're in today, because everything has kind of shifted in recent weeks, as you all know, and it's kind of on a day-to-day basis what's going on these days. But we're going to talk about how to find deals, evaluate them, make sight unseen offers, negotiate and close transactions over the phone, how to sell your deals in an uncertain market, especially when buyers are getting a little skittish, and how to close a deal without ever needing to even see the property. And we all know that ideally it's best to go in there and be belly to belly with the seller and shake their hand and do things, on paper in front of people and to see the house in person. But we can attest to the fact that you can very easily do deals and still make good money, and it all be a safe transaction doing this without ever having to do any of that in person. So virtual wholesaling basics. You can wholesale from anywhere. You can do this in your own backyard, which we've been doing since we got started. You can do it from vacation, like I said, we did in Europe. And you can start in other markets if you want to start in a new county, another state, or even in another country. If you're just getting started, though, no matter what market you're choosing, if you're choosing to just apply this to your existing business or you're trying to open up in a new market, make sure you do your research first. As I mentioned, we did build a team in 2018, and it was a lot of friends and family across the state, and we had really good results with everybody. Everybody started doing deals, and none of them had experience doing this before. So we had a lot of fun, and everybody made a lot of money together. But most of the places that we moved into probably weren't the best places to really try and start a virtual wholesaling business. So we were lucky that we had really good results. But I would say make sure that you do your research first. Don't just go somewhere because you know somebody there. Knowing somebody in a location is great, but make sure the location is right, not just that you have somebody on the ground there. A couple of the questions you might want to ask are there a lot of cash transactions actually happening in that location? Because you may really like an area and there aren't a lot of cash transactions happening, so it might be really hard to sustain doing some sort of a wholesaling business there, especially virtually. Is there a large enough population to offer steady deals? A good marker is about 1 million in population for your target market. If you've got at least that many in an area, then you can pretty safely say that there's going to be enough deals going on that you'd be able to be sustainable with that. So when you start looking at some of the counties that you might be looking at, if they don't have enough in that one county, like for example, in our local market, we only have maybe like 500,000 people. So we're actually combining a couple of adjacent counties together to make our market. We're kind of in an outlying market from some of the major markets that we're close to. So we do things that way, but we're still trying to hit that million person minimum population for our target area that we're going to be marketing for to make sure that we have steady numbers. And then you have to ask yourself, have you built the key networking relationships there to support you? And we'll get into this a little bit more, but if you don't have a title company yet, don't start marketing for deals in a location. You need to make sure that you're set up with the right people so that you'll be able to close deals when you get them. A lot of people will throw a bunch of money at marketing trying to get a first deal going and then try to figure out the rest as they go, and they'll lose deals and lose money in the process. So we're going to tell you how to set yourself up right. So if you're already wholesaling, you're going to know all of this and have a lot of it established already. But if you're just getting started or you're going to open up a new market, these are things that you'll need to do. So first is start with your buyers. Your buyers are the ones that are going to tell you what kind of deals are going to be marketable and profitable in your local market. Just because you think that there might be a spread in a deal doesn't mean that your buyers look at that deal the same way. So you need to really do some market research with the buyers that are going to be buying in that local area. And some places that you can find them, especially if you're starting fresh in an area, you can look in public records for any recent cash sales. You can go into social media buyers groups like local cash buyers groups or investor groups, and of course your local REIA. Anywhere that you might be able to find somebody that is doing this type of business, LinkedIn, anywhere you can find them anywhere. Cash buyers are a dime a dozen. So cash buyers that are buying actively in this market, maybe not so much. So you really need to be talking to a lot of people, finding out who's buying, finding out what they're buying, and finding out what looks like a deal for them in today's market. Like if I brought you a deal, what would it have to look like for you to want to close on it right now with no questions? And you need to find out who those people are and who the few dependable buyers are that you'll be able to turn to with your deals when you have them. And I know, Mark, you had some concerns about this, so I just want to give you a moment if you wanted to add anything in here about buyers, if you have 2 cents to add about that. Or maybe not.
I think he had to take a call. I apologize, Marlena.
Yeah, no worries. I just figured that I know we were talking about this the other day, so I thought he might want to add something in. But I will say this is probably the biggest point of doing any sort of virtual wholesale business or wholesale business in general right now is if you don't have buyers that are buying and you don't know what they're buying, it's going to be really hard to figure out what your numbers need to look like in this market and be sure that you're going to have something to buy. Now, that being said, if you don't have any good buyers, or if you just want to make more money off of some of your deals, raising private money can be another really good thing to do during this time in the market. It's great at any time, I should say, but especially right now, there's a lot of opportunity there if you can close on the deal yourself and do something with it rather than just assign it to another buyer. So you can make more on your deals by cherry picking your pipeline. If you have any of the really easy peasy quick turn type of deals that only need a little bit of lipstick that you could turn around and sell them retail and make a lot more, this is a really great time to be doing that in your pipeline rather than just disposing of all your deals to other buyers, really closing on them, doing a little bit to them, or maybe not doing much to them. We try and do as little as possible to the deals that we do when we turn around and sell them. But having the money backing you to be able to close so you don't have to depend on other buyers that might be a little wishy-washy right now is a really good thing to have as a backup or as a primary strategy. And this also gives you an opportunity to buy and hold and refinance for wealth building. Right now is going to be a great time in the market to buy stuff at a great discount. So if you can pick up anything that you can hold on to and put a tenant in and then refinance it out and get a better rate and hold on to it for the long term, that's where it's going to be a really great time for people to actually build some wealth during this time, even though it can be really challenging in the economy. So some places that you can find lenders, networking through your REIA and online groups, pretty much just like buyers, pretty much anywhere. Public records of recent investor transactions, you can look that up. And friends and family, people that you're standing in the grocery store 6 feet apart from, that sort of thing. Really anywhere, be talking to the people that utilize social media right now. If you've done deals before that you've worked with lenders or you've partnered with somebody that's worked with lenders, make little posts about deals that you've done and what lenders have made working with you. Obviously, you don't want to try and sell anybody on, hey, if you work with me, you can make a certain percentage because that'll get you in trouble. But you can certainly let people know, hey, we do these real estate deals and our lender partners working with us are making good money. This is what we did on a recent deal. And then, spell out what people are making with you. Hey, if anybody is interested in learning more about this, get in touch with us. So I would definitely suggest everybody do that. Whether it's this market or another market, you should always be building up private money and building your buyers list. So those are two really important things. But moving on, what you're really here for today, I'm sure most of you, is about the acquisition side of wholesaling. And so we wanted to throw these rules out there for you. This is something that we're always talking to our team about and we think is really, really valuable for people to know. It's really easy to focus on marketing and try and talk to people and be looking for deals. And it's really hard to focus on every single one. And I'm sorry, let me restate that. It's hard not to focus on every single deal and think that it's a deal. If you look at it from these rules perspectives, it's kind of like the high level view and it helps you keep it in perspective. So wholesaling is a numbers game. I mean, we're talking, maybe not talking to 100 people, but we're getting 100 phone calls from our direct mail on average for every deal that we're doing. So it really is a volume game. If you're not talking to a lot of people on a daily basis, then you're not going to do as many deals as quickly. That's for sure. And if you're only talking to a few people at a time and you're assessing every single deal and you're trying to make offers on every single deal, you can actually waste a lot of time talking to a lot of unmotivated people and making offers that are never going to go anywhere. So we try and keep our focus on the numbers game to know that we're really looking for kind of the needle in the haystack of the person who is really primed and ready to do business with us. And so, for the 99 people that are not a fit, we have methods to try and determine that really quickly on the front end with our first phone calls. So we'll talk about that more in just a minute. But the more leads you process, rule number 2, the more deals you will do. So I tell our team all the time, it's like a needle in a haystack. We got a bunch of different haystacks. There's a $10,000 or $20,000 or $50,000 needle in every single one of them. Your job is to find it as quickly as possible so you can do a bunch of them. So if you're processing every single lead slowly, it's going to take you a lot more time to find that needle in the haystack. And then once you find one, it's going to take you just as long to find the next one. So if you can process your leads quickly, not only will you do more deals more quickly, but rule number 3, the faster you process your leads, the faster your skills will grow. And this is something I think a lot of investors mistake. They think, hey, I'm talking to people every day and I'm making these offers and building my skills. But you could be building your skills with making offers to unmotivated sellers and never end up doing any deals with it. So if you get really good at processing your leads really quickly for motivation, then your skills at determining motivation and making the right offers to the right people are going to grow much faster than if you slowly go through your leads and try and make an offer to every person. Now, making an offer to every person is a good thing, so I don't mean to shoot that down, but we'll talk more about that in a moment. The idea being that try and get through as many leads as you can, as fast as you can, looking for the motivation, and that's going to help your skills grow more than if you just focus on making offers and evaluating every deal. Rule number 4, you must have resources to leverage in order to find deals. And this doesn't mean that you have to have a ton of money. All our early deals we did very, very cheaply. We leveraged our labor, right? Eventually we started leveraging our money, and then we started leveraging our money to leverage other people's labor in the process, building out our team. But you do have to have resources. I mean, deals are not just going to fall in your lap if you sit around hoping that one day you'll do a deal or you talk to 1 or 2 people here and there. Like, you really have to go after it. You really have to be consistent in what you're doing. And that's number 5. If you're inconsistent in generating leads or in processing them, then your deal flow and your income will be inconsistent. And there's a general rule of thumb that, whatever you're doing today is going to net your return in about 3 months. So if you're being super solid in your marketing efforts and your lead processing efforts right now, then 3 months from now, you should expect to have a good return from that. But if you get a little bit, cold feet because of what's going on in the market, you pull back on your marketing and maybe you don't follow up with people as closely, anything that you do that's inconsistent today is also going to show up 3 months down the road in your business. So you need to make sure that if you're going to go after this in any way, that you apply consistent effort and you have your systems set up to not necessarily grow over time, but that they're going to stay solid and stable over time if you want this to be a consistent thing for you to generate income. All right, moving on. So marketing for discount property deals. Good lists to pull in this current market. I mean, we always love the big, huge equity lists and the tax delinquent lists and evictions and probates and, all those targeted things. But right now, with everything that's going on with the courts and the shutdowns, and, we're kind of staying away from anything that is court related as far as evictions, for example, or pre-foreclosures. All that stuff is kind of stopped right now. And there may be quite a bit more of those to take advantage of in a couple of months. But for right now, we're focusing on vacant properties, absentee owners, and people that have bad credit that may already be hurting financially that this time could actually be causing additional pressure on them. Obviously, if you have a vacant property, this might be a really good time to sell before things get any worse potentially. And if you have an absentee owner, then they could actually have a tenant that's not paying. there could be some problems going on there that are hurting them that they can't do anything about right now without selling the property. So those are the ones that we're targeting. I'm sure there are a lot of others that you could target, but those are our primary ones we'll share with you guys for right now. And the marketing channels, there's a whole lot of stuff you can do. Direct mail it's always been our bread and butter. It returns very consistently for us. We really like knowing that if we send out a certain amount of mail, we're likely to get a certain amount of leads. And with a certain amount of leads that we process, we're likely to get a deal. Cold calling is another way to do that, a little bit more proactive strategy where you pick up the phone and you just keep calling people until you get a deal. Cold texting is similar as well, and texting has like 100% open rate with most people. So definitely a great strategy to use during this time to reach out to people. PPC we've done some of, but we haven't really been getting the return and the results that we've been hoping for from it recently. So we did dial that back because it can be pretty expensive, but we know other people that are still getting results with it. And Facebook ads, we know a lot of people that are really trying to invest heavily into Facebook ads right now just because so many more people are at home and potentially spending time on Facebook on their phones. We actually are still focusing on direct mail and some cold calling primarily, a little bit of texting as well. But I do like the idea of the Facebook ads. So I just want to throw that out there for you guys.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, go for it.
So one thing that we've also been working on that we've been seeing some action in is if you've been wholesaling for a while and you have a pipeline built up of cold leads, we've been retargeting those cold leads and actually calling back out to them because we're starting to see some more motivation and people that were kind of waiting out for a time frame, or they wanted a certain price. Right now they see there's uncertainty, so they're starting to raise their hands more.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, Josh. And I don't know if I would put that on the marketing slide, but I do think that that is one thing I didn't include in here that we definitely need to point out. I mean, right now, for all our people that a month ago were set for future follow-up for, 2, 3, 4 months down the road, we told our team, listen, we need to get all those people back on the phone now because whatever happened a few weeks ago for them that they weren't interested today, or yesterday, I should say, today they may be in a completely different mood. And that's what we're finding with a lot of people that said, no, I'll hold on to it forever. And we're calling them back a couple of weeks later and they're saying, with everything that's going on right now, I actually do want to consider that. Let's talk. So fortune is in the follow-up. That's always true, but even more so right now because so much is changing all the time. You don't know what they said yesterday, might not be true for them today. All right, lead processing and qualification. You do need to use a CRM. I know people that use still like a spreadsheet and even paper folders. But if you really want to do a consistent wholesale business, you're going to need to process volume and you're going to need to use some sort of technology to keep that straight and keep you on track with your follow-up. Do respond to inquiries immediately. If you're calling out to somebody and you get them on the phone and they want an offer, be prepared to actually get back with them as quickly as possible and make them that offer. If somebody is calling in from direct mail or some other type of marketing that you're doing where you're receiving the phone call, either answer directly when they call or make sure you call them back right away. Especially right now, there are a lot of people that are investing more heavily into their marketing strategies in this market because they're smart. They want to take advantage of the opportunities that are out there. And so people are still, if not more so than yesterday, today getting 5, 10, 15 different postcards and phone calls and texts from different investors. So make sure that you treat your prospects with the utmost of respect their time, and make sure that you're prompt with them because as wholesalers, what we really offer to sellers is speed and convenience. So if they're calling you for speed and convenience and you take a while to get back to them, or you take a few days to even return their call, or you tell them, hey, let me go do some research, I'll call you back with an offer, and then they don't hear from you for a few days, it's very possible, even likely, I would say, that they're going to go work with somebody else. So make sure that you set yourself apart from other investors out there by being super prompt, responding immediately, being professional in the way that you're going to get back to these people and serve their needs. Focus on building rapport and diagnosing motivation and pain. A lot of times we see investors get on the phone with their prospects and they want to focus on the house and the numbers, and then they want to go and throw a number out at the person and just hope for the best. And we found, and I really believe this is true in sales in general, but especially with what we do, we really need to focus on building the relationship and finding out what's really going on for the person. Because I don't know if you realize this, but all those 5, 10, 15 investors that are reaching out to these people, we're all selling the same stuff. We're all selling the speed and convenience of a cash transaction, close on the data you're choosing. We'll pay all the closing costs. There's no commissions or fees. All that stuff is the same across every different investor. So if you want to set yourself apart, don't try selling them on what everybody is offering. Build the relationship, and people will do business with those they know, like, and trust. That's the most important thing. And if you don't build that relationship, they're not likely to do business with you over somebody else who did, even if you're offering a higher price sometimes. So always keep that in mind. You really need to be getting into the situation with them, trying to really find out what's going on so you can tailor your offer to really meet their needs. Do not name the first number, and I put real in parentheses there because you might name a first number because they force you to, and they're not going to tell you what they want until you name a number first. If you do have to name a number, make sure it's not a real number. Make sure it's so low that it's not even in the range of being a real number. So for example, if the house is worth 100 and you could pay, say, 60, maybe let me restate that. If the house is worth 100 fixed up, and it needs just a little bit of work, you could pay 60 for it. Don't say you could pay 60 for it or 50 to 60 for it. You should say, I don't know. I mean, I know other investors are buying houses in that neighborhood around like 30 to 40,000. That wouldn't work for you, would it? Right? So if you have to name a number, make sure you go excessively low. Leave yourself plenty of room to come up, because you don't want to start at the highest point in your range and then they say, no, I couldn't do that, and they want a higher number. So you always need to leave yourself room to negotiate. And we'll talk a little bit more about negotiating in a couple minutes. But it doesn't matter what they say they want. It really only matters what they really need. So we tell our team all the time, whatever number they name on the phone, if they give you a price, it really doesn't matter. If there is motivation, they're going to sell for whatever they need to sell for. It doesn't really matter what they say they need, or I'm sorry, what they say they want. Now, if somebody is unmotivated, what they say they want, if they're not going to budge on it and they're not motivated, then, it doesn't really matter still, because you're not going to pay that and you're not really going to enter into a real negotiation with them anyway. We'll talk a little bit more about motivation in just a minute, but have them walk you through the house and tell you what they see. So this is getting into the how do you do this virtually, because most of all the rest of that is all standard stuff that everybody does on the phone on the front end. So as you're talking to people, you can get to a certain point in the conversation, and ideally you already have a sense of this is worth going to this point with, like they actually have some motivation to sell. And just tell them, I'm standing at your front door with you, and I want you to take me around the house. First, let's walk around the outside of the house, and I want you to tell me what you see. What are the different features of the house? Is there anything that needs to be repaired? How old is the roof? And as you're walking around with them, it gives you an opportunity to not only continue to build rapport, but to hear how they're going to talk about the house, because they have to use their own thoughts and words to describe to you what they're seeing. And as they go, if you hear any pain in their voice, like you're listening for motivational cues, definitely taking notes about the house, but you're really listening for how they talk about it. If they say, oh, well, it needs this, or it needs this, or I would do this, those are little minor pain points that you can kind of jot down and try and circle back around to later. So always be looking for those things in anything that they say, whether it's about the house or about the situation. But have them walk you around, ask them, what would you do if money were no object? Okay, so you're describing the kitchen to me. If they don't mention if it has granite or formica or whatever, you can ask, does it have granite? When was the last time it was updated? Has it been updated in the past few years? What did you do to it? How much money did you spend on that? Or if they say, yeah, it needs this, you could ask, have you priced that out? Do you know what that would cost? So these are all ways, as you're talking about the house with somebody, to kind of press a little bit on the pain without having to be there and kind of stare at the blemish that's in the house like you might normally do if you were walking around with them in person. Josh, is there anything you have to add to that one? Okay, you're looking at me like you might. Okay. Make sure that everyone who wants to sell does get an offer, even if you're just throwing out a lowball number on the phone for an unmotivated person, because you never know what they're going to say. Sometimes people hold their cards really close to their chest, and until you name a number, they're not really even going to enter into the conversation with you. So sometimes you have to throw it out there. But if I have a motivated person on the line, I'm not just going to throw out a number on the phone. I'm going to wait until they're ready to make a decision. And then we're going to very strategically lay out our offer with them with the goal of getting the contract. And this is especially important in a virtual environment because normally you would go and you would be in front of the person and you would be developing more rapport. And there would be kind of like a pressure on them to maybe make a decision because you're there in the house and they need to get this done. And you have a piece of paper that is like a firm commitment in front of you that you're willing to sign if you can come to an agreement. But when you do it over the phone, a lot more people are like, oh, just send it to me in email and I'll take a look and when I'm ready. And so we don't allow that. If somebody has motivation, we are not going to actually schedule an appointment to go over our offer with them until they're ready to make a decision because we don't want anybody going out and shopping our offer around. They're either ready to make a decision with us and move forward or they're not yet. And sometimes that just means we need to follow up really closely with them. Sometimes it means that we need to get a commitment from them on what their next step is. If they've got to talk to their sister or their cousin or, whoever else is involved in the situation before they can make a decision, we let them know, okay, I'm going to follow up with you on this day because you said that's when you're going to talk to them. And if you're ready to make a decision, then we can talk about, where things are going to stand. And if somebody says, well, just tell me now, we'll usually just let them know, things change in the market on a daily basis. So whatever we could tell you today isn't going to be relevant tomorrow. So we're going to wait. It takes our team a lot of time to do this research to make a really dialed in offer. So we don't want to go to that effort if you might not even be ready at some point in the near future. So we're going to wait until you're ready to make a decision, and then we'll be happy to sit down with you and we can hash this out and see if we can have a meeting of the minds to come together on something that's a win for everybody. Now, if they're unmotivated, you don't want to spend the time doing the research at all. Just give them a percentage of this estimate or whatever sort of basic formula calculation you want to use, and then see what they say. And that could be done, with a written offer letter that you send through email. If that's the type of person they're really unmotivated and they want something in email, we do have a form letter that we do, and our system calculates it, and it's a percentage of this estimate. I think we use 70% of this estimate. It's not a real offer. It's not something you have to stand behind. It's basically just another marketing piece to see if they're going to raise their hand at a number that is even somewhat flexible off of retail. But if they're motivated, again, don't go do all the work on the deal until they're ready to make a decision, because they might actually not be ready to make a decision anytime soon. And you could do all that work for no reason. Remember, volume is key. You need to process a lot of leads. If you look at every single person as worthy of your time and energy to go do all this research and look at the comps and put together an offer, and then you're making an offer to every person that's a real offer, you could be wasting a lot of time and missing out on the leads that could actually be deals for you.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize this is such an amazing opportunity right now for us and people wanting to get into virtual wholesaling, because you basically have a captive audience that are stuck at home. Maybe their biggest excitement for the day is going out to the mail to get that postcard that you sent them, or they're just waiting for someone to talk with and over the phone. So there's so much opportunity here to talk with as many people as possible right now. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point too, Josh, because if you think about how many people may be stuck at home alone, especially in this social distancing environment. It's almost like a social taboo to leave your house these days. There are a lot of lonely people out there that might have already been struggling and now they're cut off from the rest of society. So some of these people really just need somebody that cares to really ask them what's going on for them, how it's impacting them. What's going on? Why are you looking to sell? What are you going to do if that doesn't work out? What's your backup plan? What other options have you considered? Kind of being a consultant more so than just being all right, tell me about the house. What does it need? Okay, let me look at my comps and let me throw a number out at you. Really focus on the relational aspect of it, build that relationship, and that person will want to do business with you more so than somebody else who's just throwing numbers at them. All right, how to evaluate a deal without seeing it first. Now, at first, don't worry. I know people freak out over this. It's oh, I can't buy sight unseen. I have to see the house. Well, I'll tell you, there's only so much that can go on and go wrong with a property, and you're still going to get an inspection if you're smart. So there are inspection clauses in our contracts for a reason. I mean, ours is very standard. We always do 30 days. Right now it's 60 days because of what's going on with COVID. It's just an open inspection period. We don't really spell that out with the person, but it just says that it's subject to inspection by us and our partners. So we have the opportunity to inspect and decide, is this a deal for us? So if we go under contract at a price that ends up not being right because maybe it needs more repairs than we anticipated, then we have an easy out. We're not going to lose anything on that. Maybe lose some time. So you definitely want to make sure that your numbers are conservative and that you're not overbidding on things just because people like you want to get the deal. I do see a lot of that. You can't do that anymore in this environment. You cannot overpay for a property and throw it against the wall and see if somebody's going to buy it. It's just not going to work in this economy. But do realize that you have an inspection clause and you can get out of it. So you do need to know what it costs to rehab a property. And if you don't know, you can ask a local buyer to help you, check with somebody in your local REI, get on the phone with a contractor maybe, find somebody that does rehabs and ask them to spend, half an hour on the phone with you, buy them lunch or something virtually, maybe send them a gift card or something. But get some help with that so that you understand how it works. And if you've never done it yourself and you just need an easy frame of reference, we sometimes will use a 5-10 number rule and add an oops factor. So this is just for a standard house. These numbers might be different if you had, a fancy big house, but bathroom, $5,000 a bathroom. Well, top to bottom, redo a bathroom. Kitchen, $10,000 will cover your appliances and granite and new cabinets. A roof for a normal size house, $10,000, $15,000 maybe for a little bit bigger house. A pool we throw $10,000 at, paint $5,000, flooring might be $5,000 unless it's a big house, we might do $10,000. So you can use those numbers and then just pad it a little bit with an oops factor just to make sure you have a little bit extra cushion. But usually these numbers are going to be sufficient to get you to where you're going for an initial offer. And then, once you do actually inspect, if you find out that it's way off base, then, once you inspect, you have the ability to say to the person, listen, from what you described compared to what we see now in the inspection, those numbers are not the same. So we're going to need to adjust that down. And that's a great thing about doing this virtually. If you come to an agreement over the phone before you actually have professional eyes or your eyes on the property, it's much easier to go back and get a discount. And I wouldn't suggest that you do that as a general policy because to me that feels a little bit dishonest. Like I really like to go under contract at what I think is the right number and only renegotiate if I truly missed something or they didn't disclose something. But I do know people that do it on every single deal. So that's up to you what you want to do. But it is much easier when you go under contract virtually versus once you've already been at the house and you go under contract and then you try to renegotiate something. So always assess for ARV repairs. I know a lot of investors who look at a property and they're like, oh, it's livable right now. So, it only needs $10,000 in repairs. But when you're looking at valuations for a property, you need to assess if somebody wanted to turn around and sell this on the retail market tomorrow, what does it need compared to the other properties that are selling? So if you're looking at fixed up comps in the area, you need to make sure that your property is assessing all the repairs or renovations needed to make it truly comparable to those fixed up properties. If you're just looking at it compared to a rental, that's a different story. But most people, when they're doing their calculations for these deals, are looking at ARV and calculating their Mayo formula from that. And I'll talk about Mayo in just a moment. Comparables analysis. So today's comps, this is really important. They're pre-COVID comps. So you need to be extra conservative because until we start to see the deals that are closing in these next couple of months, we're not going to really know what those comps are going to look like. So is it taking a 5% hit, 10% hit, higher? We don't really know. It seems to us that the retail market is still holding pretty strong, but it's the private investors market, the off-market deals that are getting hit a little bit harder. So especially with wholesaling, you do want to be a little bit more conservative if you're not planning on taking it down yourself. I mean, obviously, if you're taking it down yourself, you need to be conservative as well. But if you're looking to sell to other investor buyers, then you need to make sure that you pad your numbers extra low because it's not going to be easy to sell expensive deals, like overly expensive deals today. You have to know what your buyers are willing to pay. That goes back to checking with your buyers and finding out what they're buying and what they will pay, what's a deal for them. And do you see any cash sales nearby? If you do, if you see that somebody bought a house similar to the one that you're looking at for say $100 or $100,000, make sure that you buy it quite a bit lower than that because you're probably not going to be able to sell it for more than $100,000. And if they sold that on the MLS for $100,000 and you're trying to sell it off market, your buyer pool is going to be a lot smaller. So you might actually need quite a bit bigger discount off of it than that $100,000. You're not going to be able to sell it for that same amount. So you have to keep that in mind. Look at the cash sales that have happened nearby and make sure that you get yours significantly lower so that you'll be able to sell it. If you are using a Mayo formula, and Mayo is maximum allowable offer, I'm sure most of you probably know what this is, but you need to know what percentage your buyers will pay. So the formula goes whatever your ARV is times whatever percentage somebody is willing to pay minus repairs. And then if you're a wholesaler, minus whatever your fee is going to be. So in yesterday's reality, pre-COVID, we could sell deals at 85% of the ARV if it was a nice house in a nice area that didn't need too much work, minus the repairs and then minus our fee. But today, nobody is willing to pay that much for a deal. In fact, we still don't have a full lock on what people are willing to pay for a deal because most of our buyers are like, well, I need to see the deal first before I can tell you that. So we are actually starting at 70% of ARV minus repairs right now and trying to get the best deals that we can so that we're going to have a sure ability to sell them. And we are still selling deals. So I can tell you that. I mean, we've got 2 deals that are getting ready to close that we're making $30,000 on. So, I mean, there's still deals out there to be had and closed and still good profits to be made. That's not going to be every deal. And those are pre-COVID deals. So we actually lucked out that, you know, those are working out well. But you do need to make sure that you pad your prices quite a bit. Sometimes buy and hold buyers will pay a little bit more to get a good return, but don't expect anyone to overpay just to get a return on their investment. So for example, we were looking at one a couple of weeks ago that really for a cash purchase is only worth 65 for all the work that it needs. And if you were looking at the rental return value, you might be able to get $1,500 a month for it. But nobody's going to pay $115,000 for that house just to get the $1,500 a month if they're going to be over invested in the property and the asset isn't going to be sellable if they have to turn around and get out of it tomorrow. So always make sure that you're buying on the fundamentals, not on some sort of speculation value or cash flow value. I do know people that will pay too much for a house just to get the cash flow. I personally don't think that that's the smartest thing to do, especially not if you want to build wealth over time, and especially not in an uncertain environment like this. You may feel differently, but this is our 2 cents. Make sure that you buy on the fundamentals. All right, offers and negotiations. We highly recommend reading Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. He talks about the Ackerman method of making offers. So take whatever your maximum allowable offer is. Say you can offer, you know, $100,000 for a property. You want to start at 65,000. And that's going to seem like a huge low ball and expect them to be angry. And you just, I'm so sorry, please don't hate me. You know, our team says my transactions coordinator is so mean. She made me say that number and they blame it all on me. And then from there, you come back after, you know, really considering with your partners and your team or your transactions coordinator or your boss or whoever you're referring to as a higher authority, come back at 85% of your Mayo. And then if they still are saying no, then you can come back at 95%. And then the highest you can go is your Mayo offer. Now, as you're doing this, this assumes that you're working with a motivated seller, right? This is not going to work very well with an unmotivated seller, which is why you really need to understand from your initial phone call with the person, is this person motivated to do a deal with an investor, or really are they just a tire kicker, or they really just want full retail and they're just trying to get an appraisal? Because you're not in the business of giving an appraisal. And if they hear 65% of your Mayo, they're just going to be upset. So you might as well just avoid that, or put it in a form letter in writing and throw that out to them without putting any effort into it, because, you know, it's not worth it if it's not a motivated seller. So make sure you're making the right offer to the right person. Remember, it's always about what they need first and foremost. So if they don't need this type of an offer, don't try and make this type of an offer to them. You'll waste a lot of time and people will get upset. All right, locking up deals over the phone. When you know that you have some sort of a meeting of the minds, before you actually try and get them to sign the paperwork, you should throw away the deal like a boomerang and see if it comes back. So ask them to make sure to get the commitment. Are you sure? Are you 100% sure this is what you want to do? Because I don't want to do this if this is not the best option for you, right? Are you sure there's nothing else that you've considered? If somebody else comes knocking on your door tomorrow offering you something else, what are you going to do? make sure that there is a true meeting of the minds, because once they make that commitment out loud, the deal is much more locked in than if you just got them to sign on a piece of paper without having that conversation. And let me just say this, if it's not a deal, it's not a deal. There's nothing you can do to make them close unless you take them to court and spend a lot of money to force them. And that's not even always going to be an option. And I would suggest don't ever do that. But basically, if you have a meeting of the minds and they do give this commitment, it's going to be a much stronger deal. They're going to be less likely to walk away if somebody else tries to offer them more. Once you do have that meeting of the minds, send them your paperwork through DocuSign, through email. We keep them on the phone and we say, okay, open up your email. I just sent it to you. And there are a few key points I'm going to point out. You can take your time and read through it. I'll answer any questions that you have. And then we just lead them through the contract. And we don't read the whole thing. We just point out what the key points in it are. And then we give them a little silence and space to say what's next. And they'll usually either say, okay, well, what do I need to do? Or they'll ask their questions. Once that's all done, then you tell them, okay, now click here, sign here. This is what you're going to do. So just lead them through it. Don't let them lead. You need to make sure to lead at that point. Tell them what to expect next. Okay, as soon as this is signed, this is going to go to the title company. They're going to open up escrow and get the title and lien search started. And we're going to schedule our inspections and appraisals and, get everything rolling on this. And they'll ask any questions that they have, etc. If they choose not to sign while you're doing this appointment, then you need to make sure that your contract has a very short deadline on it because you don't want them going to shop it around. We even sometimes will retract the document through DocuSign so that they don't have access to it anymore. Because we're trying, before we get on the phone with them, to make an offer to make sure that they are ready to make a decision. Remember, if we're going to make this real, true, motivated offer, we're making sure first they are actually ready to give us a yes or a no. So if they're not signing and they're not giving us just a flat out no, then we're really trying to keep control of the situation by keeping a short leash on that contract.
Yeah. The key to this, I believe, is just making it simple, stupid for the seller, that the process is you're basically hand holding them through the whole process from contract to closing, and you're going to be the one that is going to be taking care of all of the steps to get them there, and it's going to be easy as possible for them to get there. And all they need to know is they're going to get a sign here, and then 30 days, 60 days, they're going to get a wired or a check in the mail to them.
Yeah, and I would suggest, to practice this is probably the part that needs the most finesse, because you're actually making a deal here, and it can be a little touchy if you're not in front of the person and actually doing the belly to belly thing where they can see you and trust you. So I would, practice doing this with somebody that that you trust, that can listen to your approach and how you lay it out and walk through the process with them, so you can get comfortable doing it with somebody that's not a seller before you do it with a seller. But we've been doing this for many years, and people actually like doing this. It's easy for them. They don't have to leave their home. They don't have to see people. Some people like somebody coming to the home to see the house, but right now is the perfect excuse for everybody not to have to do that. So people actually really enjoy this process. So don't let it, throw you for a loop or scare you at all. All right, inspections and due diligence. As wholesalers, if you don't have the ability and the intention to close on properties and actually be a buyer, then that actually looks kind of more like what a broker does. So act like a real buyer, because that's what you should be if you're a wholesaler. And what I mean by that is actually go through a real due diligence process. You go under contract to purchase that house. If you're really intending to purchase it, you're probably going to get an appraisal. You're probably going to get an inspection. You're going to really take it seriously as if you're trying to prepare to buy the property. Now, once you do your due diligence, if you choose not to buy it, you choose to sell it to somebody else, that's your prerogative. You have the right to do that. But if you're only going under contract to see if you can sell the contract and you don't do any real due diligence, not only in this environment is that going to be harder for your buyers to be interested in even looking at, but you're going to potentially lose a lot of deals that you're misrepresenting to sellers. You're not really acting like a buyer. So what we do is we order a desktop ARV appraisal, or if it's a rental neighborhood and it's a rental strategy for the property, we'll get a rental appraisal. But most often we get an ARV appraisal, so they do that from home, just looking at the local comps. We provide whatever information we can about the property that might be unique or that they might need to know. We order an inspection. And so our professional inspector goes out there and gives us a full view of the property. They can actually take photos and videos for you, or if you need somebody else to go out for you, if you can't get them from the seller, for instance, you can use a service called BPO Photo Flow, and they will send somebody out to take exterior pictures. They'll schedule to go inside and take interior pictures and video. They will even do a full BPO report for you. So they have a few different services. We've used them a couple of times. We really like them. But this is also a great opportunity to just get the seller to walk through and take pictures and video. Just tell them what you need, what kind of angles you're looking for. Make sure to point out anything that might need repair and that sort of thing. And we found that people are very helpful with that. Send out the inspection and the photos and video to contractors to get estimates. So if you want to help your buyers kind of assess the deal, you could get some local contractors to give you estimates. That's something you could add to your due diligence package. And the whole point of this is that whether you're going to buy the house and you're going to present this to your lender to get money for it, or you're going to buy it and you just need it for your own records because you want to make sure you're buying, an asset that is a safe asset to buy, or you're going to be sending this package to your buyers to review so they can make an easy decision, you are going to need this information. So if you're one of those wholesalers out there that's just going under contract with anything and everything and then seeing what sticks, your job is going to get a lot harder. You're going to have a lot less success in this current environment than if you really start acting like a real buyer and providing your buyers and lenders with the real information that they need to make clear and quick decisions. And I think that's been really helpful to us over the years, is that we always try and put these things in our due diligence package. So when our buyers look at something, they don't even necessarily need to go to the house because we've given them such a clear view of exactly what's going on there with professional opinions involved in it, that it's not just them taking our word for it. They're actually, almost getting a sense of being able to feel and touch what's going on at the house, or see and touch, I should say. So if someone does need to see the property though, because there are some old school people that they're just never going to buy a house without seeing it, which is understandable. You just need to make sure that you really carefully manage the inspection. Obviously, you don't want a whole bunch of people all gathered together in one space, and you want to make sure to protect the homeowner and all that kind of thing. So we would suggest basic things like, maybe provide some masks and gloves and, disinfectant wipes and whatever if somebody's going to come see the property. Make sure they know before they go in not to touch anything. Make sure that you stagger their appointments. But we would suggest, and we've always done this, always try and batch anybody who needs to see the property together at one time. Usually we'll do it all at the same time, but in this event, you'd stagger it a little bit. Because you don't want people just coming through anytime they want. You don't want the buyers to get to call the shots. We don't, like agents, a lot of times we'll get calls from agents and they're like, I want to see the house now. And we're like, well, we don't really do things that way. We try and minimize any inconvenience to the seller, because we're offering speed and convenience. So if we're going to bring buyers by to see a property, we try and do it all at one time and then make a decision about what we're going to do next based on that appointment. So we would suggest that you do the same environment. Just make sure you stagger it. And closings and exits. And then I know we're at 3, so we'll get to questions real quick if anybody has any. But virtual closings are happening these days and have been for a long time. And now it's legal in Florida to do e-notarization. So your title company, if you've got a good one, they will know how to roll with this. If you don't have a title company that knows how to roll with this, get in touch with us. We'll tell you some good people to go to. You can also send a mobile notary to their home if they don't want to do the e-notarization. Some people, are going to need that because they don't know how to use their computer and phone to do that kind of stuff. As far as dispositions, you can assign, which is selling your contract to an end buyer at the closing. You can double close to sell the property immediately after purchasing it. You can wholesale it, which we really love doing, especially right now, which is just get the private money to close on it. Don't do anything to it and turn around and list it at a discounted price. So you open your market up to more buyers than you might have on your private list. You can do the fix and flip. I'm sure most people are familiar with that. You can fix it, rent it, and refi it. So do whatever work and put a tenant in it and then refinance it, which we just learned the other day that you don't even have to wait a year for seasoning or to have the rent rolls for a year to be able to refi things these days. You can do it pretty much right after you fix it up and put a tenant in it. So that's a really great way to take advantage of some opportunities in the market and build for the future during this time. And you can certainly also lease option, which is closing on the property and putting a strong tenant buyer in there until they buy it for you and from you, and you can get a premium over the retail price doing that sometimes. You can also get away with not having to do any work to the property. You can let the tenant buyer do it. So there's a lot of great strategies that you can use for an exit once you have a good wholesale deal, but you need to find the discounted deal first. And especially in this market, you need to make sure that you're getting it at an even more conservative discount than you were a couple weeks ago. All right, any questions? I tried to get through that quick, so I hope that that wasn't a fire hose of information, but what would you all like to know?
Hi, my name is Susan. Just real quick, I don't know if I kind of came in late. Do you have any contact information? Do you deal with calls from us if we have questions? Is that it? Okay.
Yeah, you feel free to reach out to us. We're REI Live Orlando, so
Okay.
you're engaging with REI Live Sarasota right now, but you can find us on Facebook, and then that's my name, Marlena, REI Live Orlando, and then Josh, my husband. And you can also reach out to us on Facebook Messenger. We're Marlena and Josh Dates,
Okay, great. Thank you.
and happy to help.
Are there any other questions, or I do want, while we kind of wait. Go ahead.
I have a question. This is Leanne. So my question is, so I know that you recommend obviously ordering an inspection, but do your buyers sometimes want to do their own inspections, or are they confident in your inspections and the way you present them?
Well, I'll tell you, we have a lot of buyers who really like to walk through themselves and see with their own eyes, but I don't think have ever had an investor buyer asked to like do their own formal inspection with like a real inspector. So they actually really appreciate it that we do the inspection, because then they have a professional inspector that has gone through and done like a full top to bottom review of what's going on at the house. And, they don't leave anything out of the report. If there's something that, we might have missed with our naked eye walking through, they're going to find it, because we're not just doing a walkthrough inspection. We're actually getting a real formal inspection. So he's testing all the systems and everything like that. So I think people really appreciate it, and it really takes a lot of the pressure off of them of having to try and inspect with their own eyes.
Yeah, for most wholesale deals before the virus, a lot of our buyers, they didn't actually do a full inspection. They would just did their own walkthrough and walk through it through the property. But we always have provided an inspection, and it just makes the process more streamlined. And
Mm-hmm.
And I have a second question, follow-up question. And that is, so in Florida, obviously you have a lot of elderly people that own homes or are willing to, to part with their homes. But are they comfortable using this virtual? Do you deal with a lot of elderly people using this virtual system?
Yeah, so we actually have one right now. It's one of the deals that we're closing that we're going to make $30,000 off of. And the gentleman, he is elderly. He's getting ready to move up to live with his daughter up north. And so there is a lot of concern there. So we've been just very careful about making sure that, we're kind of working around him, and, making sure that nobody's sick that's going to come in the house, and that everybody's taking the precautions and not touching stuff and using masks and all those kinds of things. So that is in person, but he has been really grateful for the processes that we use, because we minimize the need for people to come in and out. And you'll see a lot of people right now that might want to sell on the retail market, for instance, that agents are still trying to get in the houses. That's what we've seen. We have one that's listed, and they don't seem to even care. It's like nothing has changed. They're still trying to bring people by en masse at all times of the day and night. So our process, I think, is actually giving a lot of sellers a little bit more feeling of security, because we're taking such precautions to try and keep as much virtual as we can and minimize anybody coming to the house.
I think she was also asking about like technology with an older population.
Yeah.
Are they using it?
Okay. Well, yeah, so he's been really good at some basic stuff, but talking with his daughter, she's like, yeah, we're going to need to have a mobile notary come to him at the house, because I don't think he'd be able to figure out how to work with the technology to do the e-notarization. But aside from that, I mean, it's pretty easy. And a notary, we've used notaries a lot in the past to go to people's homes and have them sign off. So that's been a very standard process for us. And, if you're not using technology, that makes it super easy for people.
Okay, I'm sorry, I got one more question.
No, you're
So I
fine.
know you said you've worked from places outside of Florida to do deals in Florida, but have you done deals outside of Florida?
Yeah, I mean, we have had leads that have come to us from people that are in our system that have stuff in other locations. And usually, what we end up doing, because it can be kind of random when that happens, is we'll just reach out to people in those local markets that we know through our investors network across the country, and we'll talk to them and have them help us and take a look at it and kind of joint venture the deal. So yeah, I mean, it's basically it all works the same. It's just, do you have boots on the ground to make sure that, you really know what you're looking at? I think that would be the biggest concern.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no problem. Any other
Oh my
questions?
goodness. So much great information, you guys. Thank you so much for sharing. I
No
did want
problem.
to offer why everyone, if there is any more questions, you can throw them in the chat box or unmute yourself. But I know Marlena spoke a little bit at the very beginning about buyers. Paul and I actually did a video yesterday that's on our YouTube page about finding buyers and just a few tools that you can use if you do not have an in-depth buyers list at this point. It'll work in Orlando. It works in Sarasota. It's what we're doing. That's on our YouTube page at REI Live Sarasota. I believe we'll be dropping it to the Facebook page. I just haven't been able to get it to upload yet, so that'll be coming out. And I also wanted to remind everybody that tomorrow night at 6:30 will be our REI Live monthly event, and that will be with Edwin Kelly. If you guys missed his shorter, I believe it was 30-minute call on Tuesday morning, he'll be speaking a lot more in depth. He brought so much knowledge about the stimulus package and ways that you can actually use your IRA or 401k to loan yourself money and make money, and some changes that they've made, and they've actually increased it from 50,000 to 100,000. So there's going to be so much money, so much funding was one thing that Marlena said that made me think of this, because she talked about building up your own funding for deals and things like that. So Edwin will be talking about how to find private money, which can be through your IRA or other people's IRA or 401k retirement plans, but also about how to build your own and continue to build wealth so that you do have a retirement plan for people that are in real estate solely and not having their company contributions the way that you normally do it through traditional working. So that'll be really great. If you do not have a ticket already, if you go to our Facebook page and actually go through and get your ticket through Eventbrite, those are actually, I believe, on both the REI Live Orlando page as well as REI Live SRQ's Facebook pages.
Awesome. And yeah, I'd like to just share this really quickly. As far as lenders, I mean, right now, a lot of people are still looking for places to put their money. There's a lot of money out on the streets. And so if you've got a good deal and you can bring somebody's money to the table and make more money using other people's money and everybody gets to win, those are like the best deals that you can do, I think, because, there is a ton of money out there to be made. And the more you can share in it with other people, I mean, people will just be thrilled to throw money at you. So find a good deal and ask people for money, and then, go make more money because you found it.
Nope. Absolutely. It's got to be a win-win for everybody.
That's
So,
right.
and those are the best kind of businesses to be in. Are there any other questions? I don't see any in the chat box. I don't see anybody else unmuted. Okay. If not, oh, here we go. Marlena, would it be possible to get a copy of this presentation?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I'll share it to you, Catherine, and then you can distribute it.
Absolutely. And the other thing, guys, it will take me probably an hour when I get home to edit this, and then I'll be dropping this out on the Facebook as well as the Facebook and the YouTube pages. So check back if you guys want to re-listen. Tomorrow, I would say, would be about the time, because it does take a little bit for it to upload. And everything isn't just as quickly as a snap of a finger, but check back. It'll definitely be out there by tomorrow morning. And please join us again for our monthly meeting with Edwin Kelly. I guarantee you'll learn something, because I learn something every time I hear. Thank you guys for doing everything, and thank you, Josh, for joining us, and thank you, Marlena, for sharing all of your knowledge. I love speaking with you and the way that you guys have your business structured, because it's truly unique in the fact that you care about other people, and it's not just a one-turn transaction done type of situation. Susan, did you have a question?
Oh, no, I just want to say thanks a lot. I was listening in the last part and you gave a ton of information. So yeah, I'm hoping to hear more from you.
Okay, yeah, awesome. Well, we're happy to share. Thank you guys so much for inviting us to be here with you today.
Thank you guys.
Thank y'all.
Okay.